What we watched on Saturday is exactly like a whale death fart. And dear listener, viewer, if you're not familiar with a whale death fart, I invite you to Google it. But essentially, a dead, dying whale builds up enough nitrogen that it farts out all of its organs. That was Michigan State football. And you're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the Sam Adams Golden Shower aficionado Kevin Greck and Detroit's Linda Ronstadt fan club secretary Alex Plum. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Well, let's just say after I had to drive home from East Lansing on Saturday, I listened to Linda Ronstadt's saddest love songs and sobbed the entire way. So feeling better now.
Pulled off to the side of the road and just wept. Just wept.
Where all of those trees have been taken down by the tornado, just sort of that area.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to be around something that was less death and decay and destruction than what we had witnessed.
Yeah,
I just came upstairs and cuddled Jason and just broke down, and he was like, "I don't think you can go to East Lansing by yourself anymore." It's like that's right.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I drank all of the Sam Adams Golden Shower and went blackout drunk at the end of the first quarter of the game. And I blissfully unaware of anything else that happened. What took place in the rest of the game? Because we were up 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. As I was just in the Spartan Stadium men's room getting Sam Adams Golden showered all over the place.
In sort of a 2020-esque stop the count would have been a real rallying cry in that particular moment. But
well said.
Alas, all the points count, and we'll get into it. But of course, we want to thank everyone for listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share the pod with Spartans in your life. Slightly larger favor, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod. If you want to be a huge illiterati, go ahead, head over to the YouTube channel, click subscribe, comment, like, all that other stuff. Comment where you stopped watching the game, and that would be the thing you could do for us. Gentlemen, we got kind of a packed show. We're in the busiest days of Can't Read, Can't Write, as we have football and basketball running simultaneously, and a women's basketball team that we're gonna have to talk about. So, Greg, can you give a quick rundown on what we're gonna be chatting about this week?
It starts behind the green wall, where football always. That's where we start.
Whale fart.
Yep, whale fart. For those listening on the podcast, couldn't see, but I farted all of my bodily organs into the ocean, and now I'm sinking to the ocean floor. Then we go off Grand River. We'll talk about last week's. And then we will take your Twitter questions. Was that a good introduction?
No, I think you've nailed the entire show. Let's click end right now. Gentlemen, go green. All right. Let's get into it. Of course, Michigan State gets shellacked by the Hoosiers in a real got-forked situation. You both were there, though. So tell me how it felt in the moment, losing 47-10.
Kevin, why don't you take a start, Kevin? You old so-and-so. Kevin was the one that wanted to stay. I was begging to be let home. Were we in the fourth quarter? I don't even think we were in the fourth. Were we in the fourth quarter at that point?
It was just about to start the fourth quarter.
Just about to start. I was like, please, Dad, can we go home, Dad?
We made a deal that if Indiana scored, we could go. And they basically, Coach Sig heard that and said, bet. And they scored like 14 points in 2 seconds. And that was that. So it was a beautiful day for football. Everything that we needed was there at the beginning of the game. It felt so much like the beginning of the Michigan game. You know, we forced 2 3-and-outs, scored on our first 2 possessions, and then got forked for 3 quarters. Unlimited forking. Forks up our bum time and again. We couldn't do anything right. Aiden Giles turns the ball over 2 times. I was trying not to blame him for the first one, but turns out it was deflected off of an Indiana defender into another Indiana defender's hands. Obviously the defense couldn't do anything to stop them. The lines looked horrible. It was just a truly awful showing by the Spartans for 3 quarters. It was a humiliation to endure. And one, you guys know, I endure a lot of humiliations. It's kind of my whole thing. Bring them on.
You're good at it.
But this was a particular kind of humiliation where what should be a peer or less level institution absolutely took it to us in our own house. It felt like it was as demoralizing as the Minnesota game a couple of years ago.
Ooh, interesting comp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's not a great comp for the game and how it happened, but it's a great comp for the humiliation that I felt over the course of the game. So, Jonesy, what did you see from your on the Peacock? I mean, the good news is no one saw this game because it was on the Peacock. But
that's right.
Jonesy, what did you see from your coastal tower?
Ass. Mm-hmm. Complete ass. All right. Let's just kind of get into some of the outputs in this game. So I think it's pretty concerning that, we went into this game feeling good that despite the loss to Michigan, the 2 games in a row against touted defenses, Michigan State was able to run the ball. Michigan State ran for, hold please, negative 36 yards. If you're feeling bad, you're like, well, negative 44 of those were against Tommy Schuster, so that doesn't really count. Okay, well, now we've gotten ourselves up ever so slightly into positive territory. Even if you want to get rid of the negative 21 for Ryan Eckley, okay. So now we're in like 24 yard realm on the ground. Like, it was bad. At one point in time, Michigan State was earning 0.4 yards per carry. That was before Tommy Schuster was in the game, before in the Ryan Eckley botched punt. Like, it was complete ass. Aiden Childs, let's focus on the points in the game where we were competitive. Still was not able to close in the red zone. Mm-hmm. On the one time he was there, we had to kick a field goal and threw 2 picks. The first one, you can simultaneously say that an Indiana player made an incredible play on the ball, and also say he shouldn't have thrown it. Like, just shouldn't have done it. The second pick was inexcusable. I mean, there are so many ways that this game felt like a giant fucking regression to what you'd hoped that we'd grown out of. And what concerns me most is that I'm a little bothered that this came after the Michigan game.
Yep.
That bugs me that they didn't get the staff didn't get the heads screwed back on straight.
No, and one can understand how it would be hard to experience the loss in the big house that they did. I don't know. I mean, obviously Big Ten ball and Pac fucking 12, 9, 4, 3, 2, 1 ball is different, clearly. And I don't know if Aiden Childs just doesn't know that yet or hasn't figured that out yet or the overwhelm of it all. But by the only metric that Jonathan Smith gave this program to measure success, which was incremental progress week over week, he is failing. His staff is failing. And this team is failing. It was the only metric. We didn't even have to fucking win. The only metric you gave us, motherfucker, was incremental progress. And the only incremental progress I can see is that Aiden Childs is consistent at turning the fucking ball over in more and more creative ways. So, I'm not ashamed to have been hollering from the 30-yard line where we were seated to put in Tommy Schuster, who had a boner of a game.
You were
very... No, and I wasn't right, but I wasn't intended to be right. The point was, like the Minnesota loss, this is a violation to get shellacked at home by an Indiana team. That's a violation. That's not acceptable. You might lose, but you can't do it. We had no fucking pass rush. We gave O'Rourke 25 fucking minutes every time he had the ball. There's no secondary coverage. Cal Halliday in open space, waving his arms around like a fucking car wash inflatable, is not defense. So Joe Rossi, absolutely not. I was waiting for Brian Lindgren to pull back the Scooby-Doo mask and Jay Johnson, everybody. Jay Johnson
the whole time.
Ooh, happy Halloween, motherfuckers. This is not good, guys. This is very, very, very bad for the program. And go ahead.
I don't want to skip ahead quite yet to the defense because there's a lot there for a unit that let's table the defense because I don't want to move quite past the offense.
All right. Well, then let's just stick with other than Nick Marsh, who had who's
incredible,
and who will probably be leaving us as soon as he fucking can, because why wouldn't he at the going rate? What do you have left? And where the fuck was the O-line? I mean, the collapsing run in Giles. I can understand on some level the harriedness, because he's probably just exhausted of getting tackled every time. But this is not a complete unit.
Yeah, it's the right side of the O-line was particularly bad this game, which is where former tackle moved into the interiors. Spencer Brown. No, Spencer Brown's not on the team anymore, right? Doesn't matter. Former tackle moved to right guard was terrible, and then whoever the right tackle was god awful as well. It's not great. Tanner Miller got beat several times at center. Like, it was all bad. But I do think we find ourselves in an interesting predicament, an interesting question as it relates to Aiden Childs, because Aiden Childs is getting paid a lot of money to play football at Michigan State. And I think earlier in the season, we'd been more critical than some other folks about Aiden Childs' performance. I think we were pretty consistent on, like, I don't know, some of this stuff feels really kind of fucked up. Like, he should have learned this, I don't know, 5 years ago in Pop Warner football or wherever the fuck he was playing. Like, and here we are. How many turnovers does he have on the season? Is it 20?
It's a lot. It's at least 11 interceptions, and then who knows how many fumbles on top of that.
Yeah, it's not great. Plum, I think you're right, and it's fair to point out that the offensive line is not good. I'm hoping that having two redshirt freshman tackles is also not ideal, but at times they've acquitted themselves of Big Ten. Like, if you told me you had redshirt freshmen starting at tackle, like, you'd be optimistic that progress would come at that position. But I don't know. Like, I continue to wonder if Aiden Childs is it. He makes incredible throws. I think that's also fair to say. He makes throws that I don't think Brian Lewerke was capable of making. Like, I think it's been a while since we've had a quarterback who can make some of the throws that Aiden Childs can make. But the carelessness with the ball, like, and you contrast that. I think where I wanted to go with this is that you contrast that against the top of the league, which is Indiana. Hard to say out loud, but true. Ohio State and Oregon. Those teams are all piloted by quarterbacks who are in their 7th year of eligibility. Like, I don't know. I think it's at least. I'm going to continue to stay really mean about Aiden Childs because the shit's unacceptable. But when you're contrasting it against who he's playing against and the number of college level reps they've taken, I think it's maybe a fair question. Does that matter? Because all of those quarterbacks are less talented from an arm perspective than Aiden Childs is. I don't know. He makes me furious in a way that I can't comprehend. But at the same time, I want to be kinder than the things I say about him on Saturday. I don't know. He has AJ Hogarth eyes, and he's about as careful with the ball as AJ Hogarth. I don't know what, like.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, and I get it, Jonesy, but this game was so demoralizing at every single, metric. It's hard for me to just dig in on Aiden Childs, and like the lines were bad. Like he's running around frantically because he doesn't have any protection. The running backs are getting hit in the backfield every single time. Like, special teams is a disaster again. That's 2 weeks in a row. So
punt coverage finally bit us.
Yep.
Or punt protection, rather.
It was just such a thorough drubbing, tip to tail, that I understand where you're coming from, but I have that level of anger for everything that isn't our field goal unit, basically. And
last week you had it for them too.
Yeah. Well,
so let's talk about the defense then. Like, because Plum, you were spot on the pass rush. I think last week we got a Twitter question about this, and we said, well, hold on a second. Like, that's 2 offenses that get the ball out really fast, and then 2 offenses that pretty much only run.
It's not this one.
Yeah.
Nope.
O'Rourke had forever and a day to throw that ball.
And his numbers actually don't look that great if you just look at the box score, but it didn't matter. Like, he could do whatever he wanted in that game. And, the linebackers in coverage, bro, bad. And
I think that first half missing
bad.
Jordan Turner was not great. That hurt. Didn't necessarily get better, but at that point in time, you were kind of like out of the game.
And Chuck Brantley went down. Did he come back? Do you remember?
He did not. And Malik Spencer went down and didn't come back after the half either. So
this is going to be one of those, does this put you as a program into a spiral type games? Like,
yeah.
Can the staff recover from the last 2 weeks? Iowa seems like a lifetime ago now. I don't even remember what was that. There was gladness, gladness. I think. Who can recall? It was so long ago.
Yep.
And you're going on the road to another ranked opponent, and it's just,
I don't know.
Can they pull one out of a hat on this one? Doubt.
The good news is that Bert is birding. So we'll talk about that more next week. But
is that like you're saying? Is that the name of the dead whale fart? It's birding.
I mean, never have I ever heard something that felt more appropriate. Yeah. So I think staff has a lot to button up. The problem is that they had 2 games where there were clearly some things that were clicking. And in Michigan, it felt like that's a game that just got away from you. You play that several more times and you win a lot of those games. You play that game at home and you almost certainly win that game. With you might win 9 out of 10 if you played that game at home. But this felt FAU bad. Like this felt like a full regression back to the beginning of the season. And to your point, with dudes going out, you're like, are they coming back? They calling it quits on the year, Smith seemed insistent in the post game that the team seemed appropriately embarrassed, and also pushed back on the idea that someone was asking about how do you keep your team positive, and he was sort of like, it's not about why would you be positive.
What is there to be positive about?
He's like, there's a difference between being optimistic and being positive. And optimistic is a thing that you can be, but positive, like, what?
I believe he said Garuch is going to bring back the fart noise this episode, and I know it. I can feel it in my bones, and he was right. It's the thing he's been most right about. Should we talk about the fan base and how they feel about their coach, or seem to feel about their coach right now? At least a vocal minority, we'll say.
Well, yeah, let's do that. But I just also want to shout out listener Mike Jones, who's given us bottle number 26, mystery bottle number 26. And what I'm about ready to do is, if you're not watching on the podcast, you're going to see when I drink this how the fan base feels about Jonathan Smith.
It's really good.
I like it a lot.
Honestly, I'm kind of coming around to it, but like, holy fuck. Anyway, we found out later on this was Malort. So thanks, Mike Jones.
Do we have confirmation on that this is Malort?
It is Malort. He did confirm it. And I am the only one. I'll stop asking. I'm the only one that likes it. That's all right.
I mean, I think everyone kind of, when they're in Chicago, pretends to like it, just be cool and like be one of the gang. But here,
this face is still here.
In its own bottle labeled 26, I got to tell you, no, thank you, please. I'm going to set this right back down.
Anyway, let's talk about it. And then I want to chat about like compare and contrast, because there's been a lot of talk about Signetti, and who clearly, like, let's not deny, is a good coach. He was not wrong when he suggested, if you don't know who I am, Google me. All I do is win. Like, he's not wrong. He's a great coach. But I think there's some important differences that we should chat about. But let's go ahead, Greg, and dig into the fan base.
Well, I won't let myself look at social media today, so I'm not seeing what people are saying exactly. But if I were to hazard a guess, it would be something along the lines of this Pacific Northwest dude bro does not get it. It's not going to work out. We're doomed forever. Somebody kill me, please. Is that about? Do I have the finger on the pulse?
You're there.
Yeah, you've got a second tier you're missing though, which is that like there's a whole lot of, I really believe in Jonathan Smith, but, and then proceeds to say, in the same way that when Plum's not here, we say, I really like Alex Plum, but, and then
we really wish Plum were here, but he's drowning.
Plum made the Malort face before he drank the Malort.
Let me just go feel sad in my Malort.
No, but there's a lot of hand wringing about Smith. I do think some of it losing to Indiana, which is a team that it feels like, though, let's be clear, folks. This is not our first loss to Indiana recently. In fact, this is our third loss in a row.
And like we've lost 4 of the last 5.
Yep. Yeah.
The old
and that's
brass
against
platoon doesn't even remember what it's like in East Lansing anymore.
So,
and they fired their coach over that time as well. That's the greatest indignity. Coach that wasn't good enough to continue coaching in Indiana still managed to beat us a couple times. Rough. Sorry state of affairs for the green and white.
Well, so I think maybe that's actually at least some useful context for the Coach Sig comparison, and then I think some of this plays into the U of M thing too, which I kind of want to circle back to, because we didn't chat after Jonathan Smith had his weekday media availability for U of M. But look, we joked last week, and it's not really a joke, but Signetti's gone after this year. He's not staying there. Mm-hmm. If he's not hired this year, that would be shocking to me, that someone was not capable of coming in and swooping away Indiana's head football coach. What's interesting about what Signetti did is he brought in, I believe, 26 transfers. 16 of those were seniors or senior pluses. Mm-hmm. 11 of them, I believe, are starters. The others are on the 2 deep. We applauded Jonathan Smith earlier in the year for how smart he was in the transfer portal about bringing in guys that were at class levels that made sense for long-term contributions to the program. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that getting shellacked at home is acceptable against Indiana of all programs. But if you're looking at a 1-to-1 comparison of, well, he's a first-year head coach and Smith is also a first-year head coach, they clearly are approaching building differently. And I think that's okay to admit. Like, you might say you'd rather go the Signetti route. I get it. We had a coach at one point in time who did something very similar to that, and we had a wonderful time in 2021. Mm-hmm. But what did we want going into this hire? We wanted Michigan State to be great and to sustain an era of dominance again. Whether Jonathan Smith delivers on that, I don't know. But
the thing that I always said was raising the floor of the program, right? Like, keep building that floor up. And that's not the approach that Coach Sig took. He was like, let's win now. Let's win big. Let's go. And part of it is he's taking advantage of a very favorable schedule. But he's proven it now. Like, shellacked us, beat Nebraska pretty good. Like, we'll see how they're getting into the real teeth of their schedule now. We'll see how it continues. But I got to say, as an outsider looking in, it seems fun. It seems like a good time.
But can we also, I know we made the joke, and it was a very good one, about the Scooby-Doo mask coming off on Brian Lindgren, and it's Jay Johnson underneath. Great joke. Mm-hmm. But we can agree that this is better than Jay Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Okay.
The third.
All right, it's a false choice, but okay, go finish your thought.
But the third, I will concede, the third and one with the halfback pitch to Nate Carter was insane. I don't understand the QBs. I'm confused.
They won't see it coming, but they'll still defend against it.
And I'm angry, but whatever. But Brian Lindgren's offense has been leaps and bounds better than Jay Johnson's offense, notwithstanding our red zone issues. And Greg, to your point about floor raising, it's clear to me that this team is substantially better than last year's team.
Yeah.
Which also would have made a bowl game but for Harlan Barnett being clearly the most inept coach of all time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be overly an apologist for the staff. It's fine to demand more and not get your ass kicked by fucking Indiana.
I demand excellence, Michael. Excellence. Okay. Plum, what are we going to do with him? Why? We had a whole vibe going, right? It was all going in one direction. And then he came back and he was like, I'm going to be a sorry little fella and I'm going to make excuses.
I'm going to be an apologist for these absolute chodes.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
I wanted to spend more time hating on Aiden Childs, and you were like, I can't blame him. And then Plum just sat there silently where I was pretty sure he was going to give out his home address. Like, what? Disappointed me.
Well, the thing about Aiden Childs is I'm expecting still that injury that he suffered at the end of the game will be permanent, and I didn't want to dance on his grave yet. But
Smith says he'll be back.
And if he
in 2
is
weeks.
back, no, he won't. And if he is back, no, he won't. He won't be. He won't be, because what happened to Max Christie is what's going to happen to him. I'm going to arrange.
He's going to go sign a pro contract,
an NBA or NFL contract to be signed post haste. So he has to leave
and maintain that pro contract as well,
through his success, through finding success and not sucking any longer. So
I really, truly would have loved if Max Christie got cut from the team so that they could make room for Bronny.
Bronny comes in, takes Max's seat on the bench. Right,
that would have been
next
a really
to LeBron.
most delightful thing that could have happened.
I don't know what to say about Aiden
ahead.
Childs. We have to move along, but I'll just say Aiden looked spindly. I hadn't seen him in person before. His legs are very thin and twig-like, breakable, which is to say, he looked like an idiot and was bereft much of the time. I saw this sort of open palm gesture, like, multiple times, which to me is eschewing responsibility. I didn't like the hanging of the head or the towel on the helmet as he walked off the field in shame. I want to see your shame. I want to feel it. I'm feeling it. You should too. And you have to look at me. So no, not high on Aiden Childs right now. Very, very low on Aiden, and wishing him good things, honestly and earnestly, because if we get worse things, so will he. So will he.
Should we move along to some hoops, or is there anything else?
No,
we want to say
let's
about this?
dwell on this.
Let's do this again. Let's actually delete it. Let's re-record it. Yep.
All right. We got a bye week, but in the meantime, we got men's hoops. And Michigan State played the Ferris State Dogs. Yallies. The Ferris State Yallies.
On the Big Ten Plus. How was the production, Michael Jones, over there on the Big Ten Plus? How did we like it? How did it fare? How did we enjoy the production of the Big Ten Plus?
What did I text? It was. It is simultaneously very professional and comically bad. My favorite was in the pregame. So they weren't even in the Breslin yet. It was in studio, I believe in the ComArts building. And two young gentlemen who are aspiring to greatness in the broadcast game are splitting AirPods, I believe, for their monitors. So each one has one in opposite ears, like they're fucking on a bus together, sharing a tune off of the CD-ROM. Anyway, ill-timed pitches to commercial, dead air. It was great. But our Spartans came away with an 85-67 victory. I think the final score actually maybe betrays a little bit of how comfortable it was for Michigan State. But also not an encouraging performance.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne State went on big runs at times.
Ferris State. Again, you're mistaking the team that the women's team killed for the Bulldogs.
My bad. It all seems very mid. It's still exhibition. I don't think it's worth spending a whole lot of time on, but it seems quite mid, and it seems like we need to figure out what we're doing with our bigs in the rotation there. And it seems like Doug Wojcik could leave the program at any time, and that would be just fine with me.
Well, we could chat about the bigs in a second, but I want to start with Jaden Akins, who went 1 for fucking 5 in this game, and thank God it was only 5.
Yeah,
because you'll remember his prior performance was a 2 for 12.
We know who he is, and it's probably time to move on. The offseason didn't help. This is who he is. He didn't play particularly great in Spain. He hasn't played particularly well in either. He's played flat poorly in both of the exhibition games. Every time I see some piece of media being like MSU's best players and Jaden Akins is on it, it's like, are you being aspirational with this? Do you not know what you're talking about? Like, or is it true and that's the state of the program where Jaden Akins belongs on our best player list?
Well,
it's bad. It's not good. And it's time for the Young Bucks to get their chance. Eat those minutes.
I'll tell you this, though. Frankie Fiddler is a lot of fun to watch. A dude draws contact like it's his fucking job. Is not interested in rebounding, so that will be a point of frustration for Spartan fans. But my favorite was drawing contact for the and one, and then looked at the camera and gave the 1, 2, and 3, and then did make his field goal, his free throw plumb, so he could back up that talk. But Frankie Fiddler is going to be a plus bucket for MSU in a big way. To your point, I think there's an interesting question around Jace Richardson, who again put in another excellent performance, is fantastic. And Trey Holloman, who, what did Trey have in this one?
He had the most assists, right, of anyone on the.
Yeah, 9 assists to 1 turnover, 1 steal, 5 points. And then where's Jace? Jace was 8 points, 1 assist, 3 boards, and a steal. I don't know. It's fair to say, hey, D2 opponent, why are you judging freshmen so early? Jace Richardson looks like someone who's going to push for playing time. And if Jaden Akins continues to choke all over the place, we have enough talent in our backcourt that I don't understand why we'd be continuing to play Akins like that. So, and Cone Carr's a freak.
Did we not know that? Is that a newswire? Are we breaking this news?
It was, even for him, it was a surreal performance. The athleticism on full display. He seems to have found some touch and some better cuts. Had a nice layup. I think the more interesting question is that MSU is pretty productive with Kohler at the 5 and Carr at the 4. That's a problem as it relates to playing Booker.
Yep.
I made this comment when Graham was on the podcast, but I'm going to echo it again. There's no reason to me that Carr can't functionally play the 5. You could play Kohler and Booker with Carr out there because they both spread the floor. If you want to do down low, I don't know why you can't play Carr there. You don't have to play the same position on defense that you play on offense.
Sure.
Also, we saw him block Filipowski twice last year, so I'm not convinced that Carr can't play the 5 on defense, but that's beside the point.
6'5". Interesting. Let's go.
Well, how tall was Brandon Dawson?
6'8", at least, I would think, right?
I thought he was 6'6". 6'6".
Wow, look at you.
So just hear me out for a second. Tom's got some shit to figure out, and I'm not convinced he will. Like, I want to be really clear about that if, as it relates to playing his best lineup, Tom Izzo is perpetually disappointing. But he's got a weird team in there, a weird good team in there that like would be a ton of fun. Whether he figures that shit out, I don't know. But you have, is it fair to say that Carr's our best athlete since Brandon Dawson?
I think you could go further back. You could say Carr's our best athlete since Shannon Brown. Like,
oh,
sure.
You could go back further than that, I would argue.
Since Jason Richardson?
Yeah. Why not? Like we saw Shannon Brown throw down quite a bit in like pregame. Did Shannon Brown do quite the stuff? Like he had I remember Shannon Brown had a very like signature dunk move that he kind of like pushed the ball up as he was dunking it. It was weird. Other guys don't do that.
Kind of weird kind of a weird windmill. Odd, yeah.
But dude, I think no one I've not seen anyone in the green and white do what he does both in game and in practice.
So then I guess this is the thing that I would just say as it relates to this team. We're about ready to start the season. We're not going to do a giant preview on the team. But I'm looking at it, and they've got, in Frankie Fiddler, they've got a bucket. It's like a genuine 3-level scorer who can create, who like is legitimately good. They have talent in the backcourt. Trey, Fears, Jace, Kurtang in spot minutes, and then maybe, just maybe, we see something out of what's his face? Akins. Whatever.
Are we going to see something out of Alex Plum?
I don't know. I was just going to keep going. But then my add-on to all of that was it seems to me that Tom is deliberately handcuffing himself by not playing Carr as off. You have a freak athlete that we're saying you don't have a comp for. Like maybe ever in Michigan State history. And because there's a backup at the 4, there's a backlog in Booker and Kohler that like it's going to be hard for Carr to find minutes on the like. What the fuck are we doing here? So anyway,
part of me gets it. Part of me is like, Booker needs to get his time. He needs to be, but the other side of this is Booker is another guy that's being hyper compensated in an IL, and pros don't really get to call the shots. Well, actually, that's wrong, especially in basketball. They 100% do get to call the shots. Never mind. It's a player empowerment league. Booker's just ahead of the game, and I should shut up and sit down.
That's nice.
What's ruining the NBA is soaking into college sports, and it's ruining college basketball too. Anyway, let's move on. I hate sports right now. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Sports suck. I hate everything. I hate Jonesy. I hate Bum. I hate sports. I hate myself. I hate sports. I hate myself.
Well, then let's just say this, that if you want something to enjoy, women's basketball might be the ticket to watch because they smoked Wayne State 101 to 40. 101 to 40. It was 58 to 5 at the half. Like, holy shit. I don't care what the final score was because at 58 to 5 at the half, I think you can pretty much say, all right, we can fuck around and find out. Like, nothing will hurt. So Freilich has got them humming in early season action. This is going to be a ticket to watch. And personally, if Tom continues to piss me off, my vote is gettable as to who my favorite child is. And Robin,
Wow.
You're catching my eye. You're catching my eye.
Plum, may I say, what an empty threat. The idea that Mike Jones would be like, I'm going to watch women's basketball and women's basketball only.
I said favorite child.
Oh my God. It's such, what a
We have nothing else. We have nothing else left, Kevin, but to make empty threats.
It's true.
Fully toothless, and frankly, indicting ourselves in our lack of morals, principles, or any other recognizable North Star. How dare us?
Also, Jonesy, hockey's still out there, which, by the way, this game against Ohio State, or this weekend tilt against Ohio State, looking tougher. They went on the road. They beat Wisconsin twice. They've beaten Bowling Green. They hosted Lake Superior State, so common opponent, and beat them a little bit more convincingly than we did. Now, granted, we went to the U to go play them, and Lake Superior State had to go to Value City Arena. But still, all of a sudden, this is quite the conference match this week. So
I'm sorry, is Value City still a thing?
It is in Columbus, Ohio, if nothing
Wild.
else. Yeah. So, Jonesy, if you're looking for a most favored son,
no,
you don't have to go to.
Don't be such a fucking sexist. Oh my God. You declared yourself an ally and you're not willing to give Freilich a holy shit, you're pathetic.
Ally thing.
Speaking of pathetic, should we talk about soccer and how disappointing they are, Alex Blum?
Yeah, Rutgers got us good. Right in the goods. Boy,
Butgerd.
Howdy. Got Butgerd and how, but good. So not good for the men who dropped 1-0 a loss today, November 3rd, on Senior Day. Hate to see it. Too bad for them. 1 goal. So that's never good to have the boys from Piscataway come to East Lansing and make a mess. Make a mess right there in DeMartin Field. The women, similarly, in the Big Ten tournament quarterfinals, lost in overtime to the Rutgers Lady Scarlet Knights, if we can still say that. And really a disappointment because the only goal that the women scored, they didn't actually score. It was an own goal by a Rutgers defender. So I'm not sure. The women, this started real strong this season and sort of kind of crescendoed to a disappointing plateau. They were number 16 in the country. This loss in the quarterfinals won't certainly have helped that rank, but we'll see what kind of push they make in the NCAA tournament. They'll probably get a fairly decent seed, probably get a few games in, I'm guessing, and certainly we can be hopeful about that. So,
are we going to host any games, Plum, or do you think they're going to?
I don't know. We might. We'll probably host the first round unless we get bite out of it, which at our seeding, I doubt that'll happen. So yeah, we'll probably host the first, maybe the second round. It'll depend on the region we get put into.
Very good.
All right, let's head off Grand River. But before we do, listen, people, you've heard us talk every fucking week about Mama's Mercantile and Eatery, and if you haven't gone there, you're a dipshit. So, look, we've told you a bajillion times the games have sound. Do you know how frustrating it is to go to a bar and not have the sound on? Well, you can
Tell
go
us
there.
About it, Michael.
It sucks. It is difficult because you can't yell at two things. One, the Spartans losing, and then also the announcers who are rubbing it in that the Spartans are losing. So go to Mama's Mercantile and Eatery. At least you'll have good food. You can have the Go Green Olive Burger if you're so inclined. It's a great menu, but this is a special. It's a half-pound locally raised beef, cheddar cheese, house-made olive sauce, lettuce. It's served with fries and dip and sauce. It's great. I think the bigger deal, and you're going to need this. You're going to need this. You're going to need the $3 domestic bottles for two reasons. One, you're going to need to drink your sorrows away, and you're going to, two, need them to be cheap so you could Uber home responsibly. So $3, get yourself a domestic bottle, get drunk, and then Uber home. Be the opposite of a Wolverine. Drive responsibly. Next up, you can also, if you can't make it there, no big deal. It is, go there. But next day, you can go there for the Lions Game Day special. You can get the Honolulu Burger. Same other specials, But the Honolulu burger, it's got the half pound, it's got the cheddar, but it's got grilled pineapple, it's got barbecue sauce, it's got mayo, it's got lettuce, and it's still served with the fries and dipping sauce. So don't be a dipshit. Go to Mama's Mercantile and Eatery. Check them out. They're on the Washtenaw County, Jackson County line, just off of I-94 on exit 153, Clear Lake Road. No big deal. Check it out. It's a great time. Off Grand River, let's do this shit. We're going to talk.
We've already been so full of self-hatred all episode, and now we have to talk about this subject.
Yeah, so let me just put in the banner here. Let's see. How do you spell cucked? There we go. Yeah.
I like how you don't know, like you don't write it in Craigslist twice a week. Anyway, so
that felt
the Big
very
Ten,
like a lived experience you have there, Kevin.
So the Big Ten put a lot into its investigation of the on-field unpleasantness on Saturday.
Can we celebrate how quickly they did it? Clearly, they learned from the tunnel investigation where it took them 4 weeks to get to the bottom of this, leaving players suspended that entire time.
Yep.
But here they turned it around in a matter of mere days.
Yeah, hours, in fact.
And found, both sides. There's wrongdoing on both sides. One team headbutted the other team. One team cleared its bench. One team seemed to be stomping on a player or coach. I know that that's up for debate on Twitter if you are an idiot. But one team did all of those things, and the other
was
told that both sides escalated this issue. So I have an authority that the administration at Michigan State is not pleased with this, that Alan Haller was in full goblin mode, and now the president and the football coach and other folks that are new to this whole thing are learning lessons. But it does really seem like we do absolutely everything the Big Ten asks of us. And then when we want something just perfectly reasonable, like maybe hold the University of Michigan to the same standard as everyone else, we are told by Tuesday that there was wrongdoing on both sides.
Yep.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Well, do you want to also mention Alan Haller's response too?
The written response? I don't have it in front of me. I think
the Big Ten laid out its findings, and they're final.
Yeah. And I think you can read between the lines on that.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to.
One of the big MSU accounts came for Alan Haller on this. I disagree. Long-time listeners will recall we didn't want him to be hired. We wanted an outsider. We thought that was important. He's done a fantastic job. I don't know what you want him to do in this situation when the conference comes back and puts this down. I want him to not forget. That's what I want him to do. I want him to feel as aggrieved as I do. I want this to sit, and I want this to pay off in some way in months or years, whatever it takes. I am not interested in doing anything for the conference for a while. I think they owe us a big one on this. And I'm also not interested in the University of Michigan in any way, shape, or form. Might I suggest we consider not being a protected rival with them anymore?
I don't have a problem with it.
Would the fan base freak out? I think the
fan base would totally freak out. Yeah,
the
100%.
normies would freak out. The people that aren't listening to this podcast would freak out because they'd be like, "It's the state." But with the real true fans that pay attention to, that are like listening to this, are buying tickets to games, care day in and day out, do you think we're ready to go our own way?
I'll push back. I'll do the devil's argument on it.
Okay. Give me your devil's argument, Michael.
Yeah, be the devil. Yeah, devil daddy.
We just lost to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
We're not a protected rival. Paul Bunyan's there.
Mm-hmm.
How long do we have to wait? How long do they get to own that?
Do you think about how the Megaphone Trophy is just waiting in South Bend?
Well, it's died. Like I think it's a shame that's gone, and I was pissed at the time that Notre Dame backed out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I think for Michigan State, the reason that we care so much about that is because they occupy so much oxygen. They have a weekly bukkake sesh with fucking Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson. Like it is the level of hand jibbers in the pocket that they get from media is out of fucking control. And so the dream is what we got to experience of you can keep doing this bullshit, and then every year for a stretch we spanked them.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that game happened, there was no more talking about Michigan. We were able to effectively steal all of their air. And so the idea that like someone other than Ohio State should be able to check them, because by the by, if it is Ohio State that gets to check them every year, then all you've done is created the scenario where it's end of year. There's this game that's really important. And now with the 12-team playoff, this conversation about a replay isn't all that crazy anymore. Like, I don't want that. I liked because for that stretch where we were dominant, every fucking year it was like, oh, Michigan's great because they played a bunch of fucking cupcake teams.
Yeah, for those that don't know, even during those years that we won all the time,
oftentimes they were undefeated.
Right.
They were still favored in nearly all of those games. Like we've only been favored against them, I think, like twice in the last 15 years, which is
and we killed their seasons. Like that was the beginning of the end. And so, look, I hate losing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it. But nothing can give me quite the same joy as beating them.
So let me devil your devil's argument. It not protecting them as a rival does not mean that they go away as a team on the schedule. They may from year to year, but what I'm suggesting is let's go make some new rivals. Let's go make some stories for our own. There are 4 new teams that have just been added to the conference. I think Oregon might be up for trying to find someone to kind of nestle up with in the rest of the conference. Penn State doesn't have a rival. We're the closest thing to it. Why don't we formalize that in some strange way? I don't care for Indiana in that role. Forks down forever. I think plum why we lost is during our tailgate, we didn't take any forks and put them in the ground. I think if we had done that, we would have won the game.
Yeah.
Did you eat anything? Because literally that would be a forks down sort of situation.
Yeah, but not with forks. It was all
forks.
We were all
Everything
it's
was
all
finger food. Yep.
Whoever hosted that tailgate was a dipshit. You should have only had fork food.
He's advocating right now. We were actually we took all of the forks out of the house on Saturday. I'm just suggesting.
Is that despite someone who gave bad juju? Just out of curiosity.
Oh yeah. We don't even need to talk about the juju. Everyone can pile back onto Instagram, by the way. If you unsubscribed on Instagram, good for you. That was the right thing to do, the morally just thing to do, but you can come back now. I just think it would be more fun, more interesting for our institution if let's go do some new stuff. Let's start some kind of rivalry trophy with another team from the West Coast. Let's amp up things with Penn State a little bit more, or whomever. Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
I mean, truly, when we were in school, I always make the argument that Nebraska was that Wisconsin was our biggest rival in the time that we were in school, both in football and basketball. We exchanged body blows with them. The inaugural Big Ten championship game, of course, like who can forget that? I'd like to forget. Cheers. Talk about like that is the all-time heartbreakiest heartbreak I've ever experienced in sports. And I think we missed an opportunity not seizing on that and making that more permanent. I know that they've got other rivalries going on. They've got a budding thing with Nebraska, but this is another example of how U of M is going to get the benefit of the doubt every single time, even when it's entirely undeserved like this. And why do we keep continuing to play by those rules? Let's go play by our own rules. Let's not put ourselves in this situation. That's what I'm advocating for. Plum, you've been quiet on all of this. What do you think?
I don't think that it's sellable. I think that people in Michigan are too strongly wedded to the idea of having this in-state rivalry. I think, especially insofar as in-state rivalries go, the fact that there is one so strong in Michigan with two top-tier teams. I mean, you have Auburn and Alabama. I don't even know if Oregon State matters anymore. Certainly the Iowas is a thing, but the different conferences, I think, take something from that. So
Duke, Carolina.
Yeah, but it's, that's not really, who cares about that in football? I mean, that's meaningless. So I don't know. You're not wrong. I mean, I think we got to do something different. There's just too much wacky. There was no reason for the after the game skirmish there. There just was no purpose. There never is a purpose, I guess, but that was purposeless, even more so. So they got to do something to cool the jets. It's not helpful, but this is the world we live in right now. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, a boy can dream.
I'll co-sign. Listen, folks, if you didn't comment earlier below on the YouTube video, this is your opportunity to comment below. Do you think we should ditch U of M? Because, Greg, I'm a little bit sold by your argument. Honestly, I don't know that there's a better middle finger we could give them. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just don't think the framing will work in our favor. There's no way to
I will
frame
say, though, look, Couch Talk today or Friday, I think it was, about the Big Ten's response, and Haller made two comments, or not official comments, but or rather, Haller made seemingly, Couch implied, the point to Jonathan Smith. You want to make a big deal about this, win the game.
Yeah.
Like, do that. Because it's a little bit harder to sell this shit when you lost. Yep. And then the other thing was that apparently whomever the staffer was who was getting stomped on, Couch did say he offered to interview Kalel Mullings for an explanation as to why he was shaking his boot on the ground, being a quote-unquote superhero, as Sharon Moore said, and helping people up, as Sharon Moore said. But Kalel Mullings has not replied. But the staffer who was down there apparently has zero interest in being the poster child for the rivalry, which I do think is the right response. Like, if I'm the staffer and I'm not, like, grievously wounded, like, don't. Why? And like, let's, I love your state and wish I could move back there, but like, let's not also pretend that that's not a state that attempted to kidnap a governor. Like, I don't know that staffer wants to come forward in this rivalry.
And you should be obligated to. So I get it. I understand it as well.
Anyway, all right, let's, should we do some quick previews and then hit our Twitter questions?
Yes. Quickly.
Yeah. So
they're fast and in a hurry.
Well, we are going to do a quick, fast, and in a hurry because these games barely matter. But
that's what Greg knows how to do.
Yeah. Monmouth and Niagara are on the schedule this week. They're coming to Breslin Center. Monmouth is your Torvik 226 in Niagara 317. These are warm-ups. In Niagara, that was where Beeline's kid was the coach for a second, right? Am I wrong on that? I think he was.
That's correct.
But not anymore. Not anymore. So anyway, these are warm-ups before next week and the Champions Classic against Kansas. If you activated your Big Ten Plus subscription, I've got great news. You can watch Monmouth. Otherwise, you're waiting. And then Niagara, I think, is on the Big Ten Network. So these teams are bad by the numbers, and there we go. That's how we're going to cover them. That's it. Anything you want to add, Jonesy?
What are their mascots?
The Monmouth Monmouthans and the Niagara.
They're just big mouths.
Falls.
Big
Niagara
Falls.
Falling water. Good. Water go down.
Very wet. Wet water. Just wet.
All right. Let's do Twitter questions. Plum, this first one is... No, actually, I'm sorry. Not for you. It's going to go to Greg because Greg has the card. So first question. Greg, tell me about a time in your life you wanted to do what Jason Kelsey did to the Penn State fan. You aren't 6'3" and 290 pounds, so you knew the fight wouldn't go your way if you did, but you could have. Greg, you could have.
Is now the time for the card?
Do it.
Maybe not.
Go ahead.
No, next time. No, it is true, listener Mike Jones, that I'm not 6'3". I'm 6'4.5". It's fine. And I know that doesn't come across here.
And how much do you weigh?
It's not important. It's proportional. Yeah. That video, that happened. It's out there. You can go watch it. Next up to Plum from the listener Mike Jones. When will someone end daylight saving time?
It's a good question. They do say that it would help us reduce a lot of things like car accidents and murders and other sort of avoidable social malady. But alas, well, there was some vote taken, wasn't there? Somewhere in the Senate, or it almost got to the Senate, and then the Senate didn't take it up. I don't know. Feels like we maybe almost voted for it, and then we didn't vote for it. So sorry about it.
The other thing I know about it is that the whole "it's because of farmers" thing is a myth, right? That's actually not why we do it.
That's right.
It's wartime production and oil usage. Yep. But either way, don't care. I don't care which one we pick. Just pick one.
Just pick one. Yep.
I don't care.
Next up from Leaf, akin to the coach's excitement with Ohio State's win. Akin. Oh, I am just mad. So right. I wanted to say akin. Akin to the coach's excitement with OSU's win over Penn State, who will MSU need to beat for Jonathan Smith to run around and hug everyone on staff?
Probably Rutger at the end of the year to make a bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, and eventually the soccer program.
Big Ten Plus. First football game on Big Ten Plus.
And next from Leaf, when the score was 10-0, so we'll throw this to you, Plum, and you were sitting next to me, and we were in our blissful ignorance. When the score was 10-0 on a scale from 1 to 7, which is such a weird scale. Why is it a 7 point?
Weird.
Is this a Likert scale, Leaf? Why is it 1 to 7? How much of a chance did you think MSU could pull off the win?
Well, not knowing what 1 or 7 means on such a scale, Susan, damn it. I'm going to say I was at a 5. So do with that what you want. I thought fairly confident. I was like, hey, I mean, we're going to fall apart in a little bit, but not entirely. Well, at least make it
2 3 and outs.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen.
It wasn't a fluke. What was so encouraging.
That
2 3 and outs, and also moving the ball. Like they got chunk yardage, but it wasn't like, oh, something zany happened and now we're up 10-0. It seemed very much in the system. And then presumably they made adjustments.
I was watching the after game media availability today, and they had Bogle and Maverick Hansen sitting, and they made a weird comment. They're like, well, they have iPads too, as in they can make adjustments on the iPads. But implicit in that comment is that your coaches didn't.
Yeah.
They're like, Rossi called a great game. It was execution. It's like, but you just implied that you got out coached. Like, make up your mind. Anyway.
Yep.
Next up, Nate C. Plum, what time between 03 to 06 do you think the football team set their clock back to? John L. Smith hours.
Was it 05 maybe? 04, 05?
04 probably feels
04.
right. That was a bad year. That year we lost to Rutger to start the season.
So,
maybe this is 05. This is an 05 performance.
05 is, that sounds right.
You were right.
God, Nate C's on one. Jonesy, do you think there's a first-year head coach in the Big Ten that John Smith can actually beat?
Oh.
Ooh, wow. That
is a fucking stinger.
Just throwing body blows.
Ow.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and Jed Fish at Washington. I think we got that one. That one I think we got. But is that the only other one?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah.
I'm running through the roster. No, Lincoln Riley would be also on the list, right?
Well, he's not. He's a first-year Big Ten coach, but like in the sense that it's his first year in the Big Ten. But
right.
Also, I actually would give a decent chance at beating USC. Greg, do you think John Smith or many of the players took the under at the beginning of the season? Bonus, remember when Childs said take the over? Wouldn't that make his under more valuable? I'd worry about a Big Ten investigation, but they've already proven they couldn't find the color yellow on a fucking school bus, so I think we'll be okay here.
Look at you. Nate C. really bringing it this week. It would make sense.
Well, then you.
I don't know that Aiden Childs, I have my questions that he would be thinking that many moves ahead. There's a lot to indicate that maybe he doesn't even.
If he can't read a defense, then he's
that
not.
Move. Yeah. Next up from Mr. Neurotic Pants, hot take. The MSU fan base is showing its ass by collapsing into a puddle of sewage every time there's a tough loss, which is what we've done. We opened this episode talking about whale sewage. So yes, we are a part of this. Every time there's a tough loss this year, this is exactly the type of first year rebuild that one expects. It sucks. Jonathan Smith isn't Urban Meyer. Oh, remember the whole Urban Meyer thing? Raise the flag.
How did I forget about that?
Leading a fairly typical rebuild. There are a lot of turnovers, inconsistent performance, red zone issues. I know some aspects of it are absurd, and he's no Urban Meyer, but this season isn't over, and improvement is coming incrementally.
Okay, hold on. No, stop. Mr. Neurotic Pants, first of all, Greg, stop being such a little whatever. Read the fucking question. Second,
were you going to use your card? It sounded like you got
I don't have a card, to be clear. The
I'll
card
mail
was
you one. I'm going to put one in the mail.
Honestly, that would give me such joy if it showed up. But first of all, I don't think it. Look, Mr. Neurotic Pants, fairly typical rebuild. I don't know what that means anymore. I think we aligned here on the podcast at one point in time preseason around the idea that Jonathan Smith seemed to be developing a rebuild that we were aligned with as this makes sense for where we want the program to go. But it is fair to say that Coach Cignetti is also in his first year and did things differently and is fucking winning. And like you can say, well, they didn't play anyone. Well, they played us and they
at home
kicked our ass
all the way. They showed our ass.
Yeah, like so, and I don't know what this Urban Meyer comp is, but like Urban Meyer also walked into a bunch of places that it's way easier to recruit to. It doesn't matter. And I think the other thing that if I can push back, and the reason that it's fair to ask questions is that this game, to Plum's point about showing our ass, is that whatever we saw the last 2 weeks, this felt like a wholesale regression to the beginning of the fucking season.
Correct.
So I'm going to be one of those people. I have a lot of reasons that I'm optimistic about Coach Smith in the long term, but holy shit, this was bad and gave reasons for a question. You shouldn't get fucking stomped by Indiana ever. I don't care who they hired as their coach. I don't care who they brought in from the transfer portal. Like, it's fucking Indiana. And you know what? They're James Madison players, half of them. Half of their transfers are James Madison players.
Yep. The transfer thing, we probably should have spent more time on that. But anyway, next up from Mr. Otterpants, I'll reiterate that MSU should featherbed its pre-conference schedule for the foreseeable future. MSU has to go to bowl games to build any kind of momentum, and 3 wins will help that happen. The Big Ten is the second toughest conference in the NCAA, and this program is, for the time being, broken. If MSU needs to prove itself to be among the elite, every Big Ten season will afford that opportunity for the next few years. The first goal needs to be to secure 6 wins. I mean, it is boring to have those games, but there's a huge benefit and very little downside to have them. So,
yeah,
there's the reason Bama used to do that.
If we hadn't played Boston College,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a boner. Actually, that's really clear, I think, and concise strategy. I think that's smart. I don't have any takes on that.
Next up, number 3, Indiana's coach probably is better than Jonathan Smith. He's an angry, arrogant asshole who probably runs his team like a U.S. Marine Corps drill instructor. All the best college coaches are yellers. Even so, this is the type of guy who gets canceled in a few years after some expose reveals that he berated players for 2 hours in a row and locked them in closets overnight. Plum.
But nothing wrong with being a yeller, as this podcast and all of our devoted listeners know well. More to the point, okay, if he gets canceled, that's on him. By that point, Indiana has established itself at whatever level it needed to in the Big Ten, in a time when the Big Ten and all of this talk of super conferencing is going on. And God, look around. It feels very much like we're getting left behind. We're certainly not in the top tier. I would not have put Indiana there, but their season, at least to date, and certainly coming into Spartan Stadium and fucking with us, is not a good look. So whatever it takes to win is unfortunately what's going to be required. And when you look, I mean, I'm not, well, anyway, yelling, that's it. Arrogant yelling. That's what we're afraid of. Like, okay, eat piss.
I'll also say, I saw an interview with him, Signetti, and he talked about what he does at halftime. And when they're winning, he yells at everyone. Like, what you're doing right now is unacceptable for the standard. When they're losing, very chill. Like, hey guys, we got this. Like, you know what we need to do. We're like, his approach is psychotic for sure and gaslighting at best. But like,
but if it works,
we have Tom Izzo as a coach. I don't know that how any of us can really complain about a yeller.
Right.
And Plum, before we move on behalf of the podcast, I just wanted to apologize that when there was a question that included the concept of someone being locked in a closet, that it was thrown immediately to you. I think that was wrong. And I think it was very generous of you.
You sat on that bit.
What I love is that he's the only one who can always see them. Always can find the landmines. No one is looking harder for a landmine than Kevin Gregg.
He just threw it to you so effortlessly that I just needed to apologize as an ally to you and to the whole.
Yep.
Next up, Keith Ski. Why can't we have nice things, Plum?
Because you haven't deserved them, Keith. You're not giving enough of your hard-earned money to whatever collective it currently runs and fails to produce results out of our player investment program, Keith. Do better, Keith. And then you will have earned nice things.
Yeah. Next up from Keyski to Jonesy, why is everything so confusing?
I don't know.
I'd
what you
argue
mean.
that it's not. It's fairly straightforward.
I'm confused by this question.
And then finally, to the both of you, why does the Big Ten hate MSU?
That I don't know. Other than it may just be a consequence. I wonder if Ohio State feels as aggrieved as we do.
Well, that's living in Ohio, so I'm not sure that is.
But you get my point, though, right? Like,
sure,
because they're a moneymaker for the conference in a way that Michigan is, and so like, I wonder if they feel as aggrieved.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they do. Sheehan at one point described it as like a corporate rivalry that the two of them have. It is a very like their kind of rivalry is sort of a like this mutually beneficial, like, you know, we're just two sides of the same coin and then we're going to pretend to hate each other. But like truly, we do support and love one another more than anything. And our rivalry with Michigan is fueled by hatred. And I don't think Ohio State's is in that same way. Next up, from the Predictor guy, who will be Michigan State basketball's leading scorer this year?
Fiddler.
Frankie Fiddler, right? Yeah. Next up, what prediction about this football team that seems off base will prove accurate at the end of year 3? Oh. Okay.
Because I have to have hope. Aiden Childs does not have it. Is my prediction now that is off base in year 3.
Okay.
Wow. Well, that's fucking not good.
I think he's asking the opposite, though. Seems off base now, but will become accurate by.
Oh! My mistake.
No. But I think you just did call it. I mean, I do think that's it. Like there's still some people out there going, no. He just had a tough day. He's just kind of getting his feet still. It's not fair to say he's not going to be there. No, but he won't be there. He's not the guy. Yeah.
How many?
He's not.
I need to know. It's gonna bug me.
It is.
How many turnovers does he have?
It's too many to count. The box score cannot contain his turnovers. And then finally, from the Predictor guy, how often does Grooch actually bathe? Was I looking a little crunchy last week after my drive to Indiana, and then we took the call. It's I bathe when I need to. A Predictor guy.
Oh no! Don't say that.
Who's pushing it? No one. No one wants it. People like a little ripeness. They like a little stank. So I give that to them. Next up from the CV Bagel. Rank the MSU football rivalries not named Michigan based on hate levels, like are Notre Dame or Penn State number 1? Where does Indiana fall? Are there any others I'm forgetting? Do we want to invent a rivalry with Purdue so we actually have something to play for? I would argue the Wisconsin rivalry is there. And there's no formal element to it, but I feel that. But my chief hatred is to Indiana first and foremost. Forks down today, forks down tomorrow, of course. What about you guys? Jonesy, where are you on Notre Dame? What do you think about Notre Dame and why?
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on the number of fucking fumbles this dipshit has. Notre Dame at one point in time occupied the same level of hate, or nearly the same level of hate, that the University of Michigan occupied in my heart. Indeed, when we still used to play them and I was in law school, and some person that I went to law school with tried explaining to me how much worse my school is, and then I pointed out we're going to the same law school, and she didn't have an answer for that. But it was that I was rooting for a tornado.
She went to Notre Dame and you went to MSU, and then she went to
Michigan, sorry, and was pointing out that my school is so much worse than hers, but yet we're still at Temple together. But anyway, the point is that Michigan and Notre Dame were playing with each other, playing football with each other, and I was rooting for a tornado. So that's where I'm at. Charlie Weiss, still a legend in my heart for an absolute garbage human being. They suck as much as Michigan does as it relates to the arrogance factor. Like they make me angry in the same ways that Michigan does, and they're not anything to do with football. Like it's the way they treat other human beings that bothers me.
Yeah, they're a loathsome group for sure. Plum, to you next up from Thomas Zambiasi. Can we,
hey,
as fans, please be upset with how the team played and not of who it happened against? I use the second best team in the Big Ten, and I believe have been putting a lot into football to paper over admin warts, like 98% no confidence vote by faculty, for example. Problem is we've had a couple of those ourselves, Thomas.
Yeah. So what is our losses papering over our own other ineptitudes, just or revealing more inept? I don't know about any of that. But no, you absolutely can be. You can absolutely be upset with how we played. I think that's fair. For me, it doesn't matter about the fact that we lost to Indiana. I mean, that doesn't help. They are having a good season. Their quarterback has looked great. I mean, it didn't help that he wasn't pressured at all. But no, he did great. And then the receivers did great and they shellacked us. So it's very much a how. I don't this in Purdue came, if Ohio State, I mean, fuck, we keep losing so significantly to teams with a modicum of effort that no, I think this is a how issue. Very much a how issue. Next up from Thomas, Kevin, how should this team manage injuries to make it to a bowl? Seems like they'll need the extra practice.
Play them. They have to play.
Thank you. Thank you. That is a man after my own heart. Until you're really injured, you're not injured. So
they're on NIL now. Give them the shot.
That's it. That's all I needed. Damn it. That's all I needed. Thank you. Very good.
See, ally to you
10 out of 10.
and to the culture.
10 out of 10.
Next up, to Jonesy, Spartan 18770. I ask again, where did our pass rush go?
I don't know. I don't know. Fair call out.
Yep.
It's gone.
It was
it's
bad.
Confusing. It's confusing. It sucks. They need to fix it.
Well, next that up, kind of is where he's going with the next question. To Plum, football sucks. Basketball will most likely be mediocre. Where would this fan base be if we didn't have hockey?
Hockey or women's soccer? Maybe wrestling is the sport to get into. I have a friend who says it's all about wrestling. She's really into college wrestling. So,
which team is she a fan of? Penn State or Iowa?
Or Iowa, yeah.
Probably Iowa. Probably Iowa. Yeah, probably.
Is this because she likes the singlets on social media? She likes to see
I
the
don't.
gentlemen in their
I didn't
garb.
ask. I didn't ask.
Because if she wants to see the garb, you know what I mean? Football pants is where the action is.
There's a lot of action in the football pants. It does turn out. Yep. No one is using protection in the form of a cup.
Nope.
Okay. Last up, Michael, for you then from Spartan 18770. How much time do we give Smith to turn this around?
A lot.
Oh,
I like. If you want an old school rebuild, then pretend like it's an old school rebuild. I think you can modify your timeline ever so slight with the transfer portal, but if you want him to do it right, then evaluate him in the same way, to a degree, that you would have evaluated Mark D'Antonio. And I think you need to give him at least 3 years to say this is on the right track. Honestly, there are some ways that I look at this season and we're doing better than I expected. There are other ways, actually, no. We talked about this earlier this year. The reason I'm so fucking pissed at this team is because they are better than I expected. Like, really. We got pantsed worse by Indiana than we did by either Oregon or Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane to me. That's what makes this game such a fucking outlier and so insufferable.
That's what makes me reach for the Malort.
But you know what? look, this team is better than I anticipated they would be. So, like, let's give the dude a second to put his version of a roster together with all the 3 stars that we could ever imagine. Next up, Beppe Plum.
Pepe.
Do we have to? Okay. This is in reference to Twitter questions. Rant of the week. My kid's abusive stepdad. Bro, I'm already sad. Picked my daughter up from the Halloween dance and tried to fight a teacher. I got an email on my school account being accused of his actions. Dude is a real horse sack. What is the worst you guys have ever been wrongly blamed for?
Or Plum, what's the worst you've ever wrongly blamed someone else for?
This has been asked and answered.
Poor Chris Tennant. Poor Chris Tennant. But that's not true. I didn't actually blame him. I made sure to salvage his name. I did make sure to salvage his name. I don't have an answer to that.
Who's the worst person you've ever defended? Ellie 7. Also, I want to be clear. We talked about doing an endorsement this week, and if I was in Washtenaw County, that's the one place that I wouldn't vote straight ticket because I'd make sure that I didn't vote for that motherfucker.
I don't think he's on the ballot.
Is he not?
No, I don't think so.
I think he is. I saw a picture of the ballot with his name on it. Maybe they pulled an old ballot and repurposed it for funsies.
Yeah, I don't think he's. I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think so though.
Anyway,
all right. Quotes of the week from Beppe. My 11-year-old son. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm so mature. I bet I went through puberty and didn't even know it. My 15-year-old student. I sell my feet pictures on Feet Finder. I had the look you would expect me to have, and she said, "They pay real money." Now we all know. That seems not good. Yep.
There's a lot to unpack there.
All right, next up, Beth Amaro. Hey, Beth. Hey, Beth.
Are we do we need to report?
Probably not. I don't know. Beth, let us know what our reporting requirements are here. Beth says, little things about Coach Smith are adding up to a nagging concern. Yes, Beth, that's right. That he's not fully in the game here. Beth, 100% Beth. Hoping that's just a bad take on my... It's not, Beth. I fear another player exodus is coming. Am I overreacting? Beth, yes, this is it. Why is Beth not overreacting, Michael?
Well, I think these are two different questions. Player exodus, I don't know. Not going to pretend to know. But is he fully in the game here? Look, folks, this is a person who won one game his first year at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
That at the time in a Power 5 conference, presumably where they scheduled as many cupcakes as we schedule, won one game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time on the not fully invested. Like, why would he not be fully invested here? Where the fuck is he going? Is he just going to quit next year? I mean, I don't blame him with the millions, but like, I don't know, Beth. I'm pushing back on that part. The player exodus, maybe. Chuck Brantley's been in the portal like 8 times. Maybe he does it again, which would be a bummer because he's been a revelation this year. You could see other people going, but like, I don't know. I'm not going full bore on not invested.
And finally, from Beth to you, Plum, tell me something positive about this team so I don't feel so dead inside. Can you muster it?
Jonathan Kim. You always will have Jonathan Kim. And Kevin and I both kneeled where we were standing in the stands to pray with Jonathan
to the
Kim.
God.
To God.
Jonathan
to himself.
Kim.
He was praying to a mirror that was on the ground below him. And he had a great performance. Unfortunately, he didn't have that much to do. So go him. And we wish he'd had more to do. All right, next up, Jess Sipperly. 2 weeks ago, Greg said he was, quote, feeling 22 as a T Swift shout out and a joke. I feel comfortable saying that since we're the same age, but maybe he has anti-aging secrets, question mark. My question is, do you have an age you'd love to return to? Your peak age when you were absolutely thriving?
Jess, do you think anyone on this podcast has ever been absolutely thriving?
Yeah. We wouldn't be here, honey. We would not be here.
Look at this.
Yeah.
None of us have ever been absolutely thriving. No. I think we'd all be happy to go back to college. I think that might be what you see here. But I don't know. Jonesy, do you have an age when you were absolutely thriving?
I mean, no. I will say law school was a lot of fun. Like for me, I was a college student in a giant city that's a blast to be in and had like slightly more money than debt, to be clear, but slightly more money than I had in college, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I would co-sign on if I could go back now, having learned a bunch of life lessons and do college over again, oh my God. Would be there in a fucking heartbeat. So I would thrive now, I think.
Yeah. Next up from Jason Fry to you, Plum. Would it be wrong to stick plastic forks down, #forks down, into the ground in Bloomington, Indiana, and have the ground freeze overnight, making it impossible to remove them without just snapping them? If not, how soon can we carpool down there? Live podcast?
Yeah, I would say in probably 2 or 3 weeks would be the optimal timing for that.
Forks down. Jason Fry, we love it. We hate them so much. Next up from G Money Stew, when does the pain stop, Michael? And also, what did we do to deserve this?
The pain stops when we hit 6 wins. I think we all, would you agree, sigh a bit of a sigh of relief?
That is what we're playing for right now.
Yep. And I think that's okay. We dreamt about 9-3 for a second, and I think in retrospect, knowing what Indiana, because Indiana is talented. Like, let's not take that from them.
Mm-hmm.
But 8-4 was on the table. Indiana's better than us, and that's okay to say. But not ass kicking better, but they're better than us.
Yeah, that's established. G Money Stew adds, side note, LMAO James Franklin, Mike Jones.
I saw bits of this game. Boy, oh boy.
I mean, part of me is like, they're hyperinflated. Their ranking, like it was undeserved. Their ranking, it happens. We've seen it happen with our team once or twice.
But what's alarming to me is that at some point in time, how has he not caught a rep?
Yeah, it's true.
In the same way that Michigan didn't catch a rep under the Hoke and Rich Rod years.
I mean, I think he has. I think people know that he can't win the big one, and there's no one that does less with more than he does.
Why was he number 3 in that game?
Yeah, because that's how college football ranking works. You lose, you go down. You win, you go up.
That's good. That makes sense.
It's a simple thing for simple people. And then finally, from the one, the only, Verbose Dutch, guys, what is your favorite Uno card?
Green number 6.
Cleanser.
Nick Marsh.
Number 6.
The Nick Marsh.
Well done, you.
Wow.
You've been thinking about that.
We didn't say enough about Nick Marsh.
That's true.
Truly.
Yep.
Let's all have a moment. Did you get good replays on that catch?
It happened right in front of us. It happened before.
Yeah, we were there.
Eyes.
Yeah, we watched it.
Oh, did you guys? I'm curious in stadium because they challenged the touchdown.
Yeah, correct.
Jonathan Smith did not challenge an interception that was clearly an incompletion. Did you guys get replays of that in stadium?
No, I don't think we did.
No.
Interesting.
I don't remember that.
When was that? What quarter was that?
I forget which of the two interceptions it was, but one of the two. It must have been the first one. Maybe it was the second one. It doesn't matter. They both happened in the second quarter. So because in the second quarter,
you're saying it was a dropped ball that we should have challenged
for sure.
Oh, bummer.
The ball, like, ground, move, like.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was no crowd reaction that I can remember. We didn't see it. No, it didn't get replayed.
Okay. Well, I don't want to detract from, because Jonathan Smith's answer to that was, they review these things intensely. So I'm not. He fucked up on that. But anyway, let's not detract from Nick Marsh, who set a single season all-time record for true freshmen. And I believe actually in this game passed BJ Cunningham with his redshirt freshman record for all-time receiving yardage in a freshman season. Nick Marsh.
And still going. Let it rip, Nick.
Question of how much he's going to cost next year and whether Aiden Childs needs to take a bit of a pay cut to make room for that. So
yeah,
something to keep an eye on, Aiden.
The questions people are asking.
No one's going to pay more for you, Aiden. So maybe you give a little on this one, bud. Anyway, gentlemen, it's been a horrible week.
Horst of a week?
It's been a Horst sack of a week, yes.
All right, everyone raise some Malort.
All out.
All out. Drink that Malort.
Drank that already because I loved it so much.
Look, this one was bad. We've got 2 basketball games to talk about, which I guarantee we'll come back very chill about. So until then, go green.
Go white.
Go white.